Dr. Michael Crook is Pepperdine's distinguished faculty. We recently created what's called the SEER certificate, and it's the Social Ethics, Environmental Responsibility, Corporate Awareness certificate here at Pepperdine University. Very impressive resume. He comes as a former CEO of Patagonia, and it's the clothing apparel, and he turned that company around from a company, can I say that? Okay. I can't tell you that part of it. He did a really good job with that company. He's also been a CEO of over 8 companies, and many of them have been over billion-dollar companies. So he's come with a lot of experience. I just heard him speak also last week, and I think you'll be very pleased with him. So with no further ado, Dr. Crook. Thank you.
Okay. What I really want to talk to you today is about this business model. And this business model I'm calling the 4-Force model. It has to do with values, very much steeped in values. I'll take you through a little bit of a progression about the movement, where we are, who's using it, how CSR, or corporate social responsibility, is coming mainstream in society today, in business today, in organizations today, and why it just makes good business sense to follow a curriculum that's steeped in the SEER model, which I'll tell you more about as we go forward. Drucker, of course, as we all know, is kind of the visionary, and he talked in 2003, but not only 2003, but in 1970s, about corporate social responsibility. But Drucker always said that a business, first and foremost, its main activity must be to make money. But he said that, because of course, if you're not making money, you're out of business. But he said the more money that you make, the more money you have to put into society. A lot of people talk about it differently. They talk about their brand image. Corporate social responsibility is used in a number of different ways. Some people wear it on their sleeve. Some people it's in the back room. But I can tell you today that there is not a Fortune 500 company on the planet that isn't talking about CSR in the boardroom. Another visionary, the Pepperdine Graziadio School. We affirm a higher purpose for the business practice than the exclusive pursuit of shareholder wealth. We believe that successful management seeks collective good, along with individual profit, and is anchored in core values such as integrity, stewardship, courage, and compassion. Here's some companies that are using CSR to their advantage. They're using it to augment their brand. They're using it to grow their customer loyalty, which is increasing customers' lifetime value, which is increasing any financial metric you want to look at. I'm aware of most of these companies and know a lot of the CEOs. Interface Carpet we'll talk about a little bit later. Ben and Jerry, Ben's a good friend. They did amazing things on the social side of things. The LOHAS market, LOHAS in the middle there stands for Lifestyles of Health and Sustainability. And the original LOHAS research came from Dr. Paul Ray in a book called Cultural Creatives, where he identified about 70 million people in the US that had a certain set of values, core values, hierarchy of values, and those values they acted upon. They bought things, they consumed things based on those values, they made friendships, they moved in neighborhoods. Values were very important to them. We all have values. Every one of us has values, and every one of us refines our value list as a pyramid. At Patagonia, when I was there, we started 1% for the planet. We've been giving away, Yvonne had been giving away 1% of profits for years and years. But we said, well, we need to why isn't anyone else doing it? Well, we weren't doing the marketing aspect of it. We created 1% for the planet, this logo, and we said anyone that starts to do it and abide by these guidelines can start to use this logo. Over 2,000 businesses now. It is just going crazy. Millions of dollars have gone into the environment because of it. But my point here is not how great we were at Patagonia or the brilliance of Yvonne. It really is that you need to really think this stuff out. It has to, you have to be able to take these ideas, these ideals, these values, and you need to be able to bolt them to the ground. In your business model itself. here's a few other companies, and the thing that they all share in common is that they are very, very deliberate in talking about their core values. They have a lot of transparency about it. Anyone that has transparency has to be authentic, meaning, not, it's a word that's overused a lot today. But you have to talk about what you're not as well as what you are. And in today's social media world, as I say here, there are no dark corners. You have to be what you say you are. And if you're not something, you better say it first, because I tell you what, someone else is going to be saying it if you don't. So it's all about values. And if you get that values, we're really talking about a life of meaning. Everything that's gone on, and as I understand the subject of this conference and what's happening after a downturn, there's been a reset. A reset. It's not a do-over and hey, we're going to be back to where we were. It's a reset. But in general, there are so many people that are saying, I want a life of meaning. They're rethinking things. Do I want to drive 2 hours a day to work? Do I want to work in that environment where I'm not really satisfied and I come home miserable and I do this? People are really getting in touch with what a life of meaning is for them. And any life of meaning is steeped in values. Alport was one of the first that really studied values in the 30s and 40s, and he talked about categorizing things. As human beings, we needed to categorize things because there was so much going on and so much input coming into us that we had to be able to say, take that, put it there, take that, put it there, take that, put it there. And he came up with a series of values that he said at that time encompassed all values. But one thing that he said about values was that they're constantly evolving and changing. The world is changing. Our values are evolving and changing. And if they didn't evolve and change for an individual, organization, or society, they would not last long term. Rokeach, in the 70s, started talking about a hierarchy of values that people act on. And as I told you with the cultural creatives, those cultural creatives are very much in tune to this hierarchy of values. They're the progressive consumers. And the thing you need to know about these consumers is that it's a psychographic, it is not a demographic. You can be 60 years old, you can be 70 years old, you can be 20 years old, and have the same beliefs and the same hierarchy of values. And those people want quality products that they believe in. They want products that minimize the carbon footprint, the footprint on the earth. They don't want to compromise, they want great quality product. If it's clothing, they want product that looks good on them, that lasts. That's the ultimate environmental responsibility, is to have something that lasts forever. Doesn't go out of style the next day. It's a great suit, it lasts, it fits a long time. And finally, they want the business to be transparent. And what happens, of course, is you get major brand loyalty. So it's a psychographic on these progressive consumers. And those progressive consumers right now is a body of about 80 million, according to Paul Ray, give or take. But those are the people that are shopping at those companies that I talked about earlier. Those are the companies that are investing in their brands. About 2 weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal, there was it wasn't really an op-ed, it was a section on why corporate social responsibility was dead. The whole time, throughout the whole article, what they missed, in my opinion, is that when you are investing in this type of these values, and you have a consumer that they're aligning with those types of values, your brand means a lot more. When they walk into a store and your brand doesn't have their size or their color, or I'm talking clothing here, but it could be anything, they will wait until it's back on the shelf. They are loyal. That is worth a lot. How much will they pay for these goods and services? The first journal article, I say first like I have a ton, I've got two, what we did is we looked at the demand curve of organic cotton when Patagonia switched from conventional to organic cotton. It was 1996, a couple of years before I went to the company. But I had all the data, and I had some brilliant professors that were willing to teach me how to do this. And so we crunched all the numbers, and what we found out was that until about 10 or 11% increase in price, the demand curve stayed exactly the same. So the customers, these cultural creatives, if you will, they will pay up to 10% more if it fits directly with their values. Now, what do you have to remember if you do that? You have to remember that the marketing aspect of it is critical. You can't just change to organic cotton and go up 10% and not say anything. So it's a big loop. And again, we're talking about a positive here, but it could be a negative. If you're doing something bad, you better make sure you do it. Every speech I gave at Patagonia, I opened up the speech by talking about we're much bigger this year, we've expanded into this country, into this or that, and we're polluting a lot more. Please go to our website to find out more. And that was great. I mean, it was just like Nike. Remember Nike when everyone was after them, all the NGOs were after them about their sweatshop labor and what was going on. What did they do? They did the most beautiful corporate social responsibility program and published it, made it all public, made their factories public, put all their works out in public so that everyone could see. After that, almost nothing in terms of NGO activity. It was brilliant. And then they had a starting point. Now they're one of the most progressive environmental CSR companies on the planet. Here's some other larger examples. I've been using smaller companies. Interface Carpet. Ray Anderson at Interface Carpet. For years, subscribed to making factories that were using a lot less energy. For years, subscribed to figuring out how to recycle his carpets so that he could lower cost of goods and reduce waste. And the stock price was depressed for years. But he stuck to it. He had the conviction to stick to it. And you can see the energy results here up on the screen. But he also came up with innovations because they had the sustainability initiative, such as carpet squares. So when he puts in carpet into a large space, it's only the hallways that get worn out. So you take the squares out in the hallway, and basically the rest of the carpet is still good. You don't have to swap the whole thing out. Innovations such as that is what he came up with. GE, it's crazy what they're doing. It's a big focus on what they're doing. Levi's, I just watched a YouTube video last week of the CEO at Levi's. He has sustainability VPs around the world. Those sustainability VPs now have the collateral duty of being the efficiency expert for manufacturing. Although they're not doing a lot of manufacturing on their own, they're working with all their third-party suppliers. So they put the two together. They feel that, just like Ray Anderson, that there's a lot of waste sitting on the cutting floors, reducing the carbon footprint of moving things around from where they weave it and where they sew it and what factory it goes to. McKinsey & Company did a CFO study amongst CFOs. General agreement, environmental, social, and governance program absolutely will increase shareholder value. A Harvard Business School in the future, only companies that make sustainability a goal will achieve competitive advantage. Here's Alport's categories that I mapped into the SEER values, or the 4 values, and here's Pepperdine's values. So it really does, it's a complete map, and now I want to tell you a little bit about the SEER program, but first I'd just like to introduce Dr. Mark Mallinger, who is the founder and visionary of this program. Mark, would you please? Thank you. So the program, the way it works, and the way that we're setting it up is that we have 4 quadrants, and these 4 quadrants work together. There is no individual value here. These 4 forces, if you will, or values, work together. I'll give you an example. Financial strength. You can't have financial strength unless you have a great product or service. A great product or service isn't a great product or service unless if you looked at the social responsibility side of it. Why do I say that? Because, well, you can't say, if I'm the CFO and I'm saying, well, that's a great product, it's great, I see the forecast, where is it being made? Is there a possibility that the NGOs are going to come down on us because it's sweatshop labor? How are we taking care of our employees that have that program? On the environmental side of it, I've gone over some examples of how important it is to look at the waste side of things, resources side of things. How can we cut down on resources? I mean, if you take one airplane ride from Asia to the US out of a product's life cycle, you have significantly reduced its cost of goods. And remember, its cost of goods at the business side of things is multiplied by 4 when you take it to retail. There's none of these values that operate independently. They all work as one. Break them down a little bit. Product quality. The goal of a product of quality is to have cradle-to-cradle type of product, meaning nutrients to nutrients. In a perfect world, I guess you know I keep using clothing examples. I don't know about anything else. In a perfect world, you get done with a shirt, it wears out, you take it out to the garden and you compost it. Nutrients to nutrients. That would be a perfect world. So total vertical understanding of the carbon footprint. It's really great that I can say, wow, this is an organic shirt, or this Prius is a hybrid. Well, if the battery in the life cycle of Prius has to be, it can't be upcycled, it has to be downcycled. That means it has to go somewhere and sit somewhere and do that, and then et cetera, et cetera. It was made here, it was painted over there, it did this. It could be very well a net negative in the environment. You have to be able to understand the total carbon footprint of a product. And ultimately, it has to be great quality, high profit margin. Does the product need to exist? You know, is there a reason to have that product in the line? Because that is the only thing that's going to give it the longevity. That's the measure of something that's not going to go out of style. That's the measure of something that can be repaired when reused or recycled. Financial strength, again, they're related to all the values. Environmental stewardship, it's not just recycling, and it's not just minimizing your cost of goods. It's systematic. Systemic. You need to be able to look at every single aspect of your operation, right down to from things as little as, you know, how many plastic water bottles are we using in an incorporation, to what type of lighting do we have, the energy, to where are we going to build, to where our raw materials are coming from. But you need to be able to do an audit of everything to start from and say, excuse me, this is where we are right now, and this is where we're going to go. In corporate citizenship, I'm a really big believer in the world is flat. When I say you have to work with the community, I mean that the community is everywhere that you touch. If you're making things in Asia, if you're making things in South America, that's part of your community. Those are your people. Those are your stakeholders. You need to be engaged. You have to at least understand what their issues and what their problems are. You'll get, as I said, if you subscribe to this philosophy, and I have managed quite a few companies this way, and it has worked. You get amazing stakeholder loyalty, competitive advantage, a lot of great goals, but the one I'd like to just highlight here is shared leadership. When you have an organization and the VP of the social side of things is just as engaged and important as the VP of finance and the VP of product, you get, and you all sit down and you say, this is our vision, this is where we're going, it's a collective intelligence, and you come together and you have a plan. Leadership starts to come from inside, internal of the organization. Because it doesn't matter where you are. If you sit over in finance, or if you sit over in product, or you sit over, you're part of the values and the vision of that company. You can feel it. You take people and you put those people into the committees that decide where the money is you're going to give away, where the stores are going to be, what kind of products you're going to make, and you engage your internal stakeholders. You get an amazing amount of energy in an organization. And that's what I call shared leadership, because everyone feels like they're a part of it. And when you feel it, and I'm sure you all have in some way, shape, or form, or there was a basketball team or a knitting club or whatever it might be, when you're all in it together and you have that same shared vision, it goes back to values. I'd like to just leave you with, I really like this book because it's a Paul Hawkinson book and it's so positive. And what in it he talks about, now there's between 1 million and 2 million social justice and environmental organizations now. It is the largest social movement in history of mankind. It's a rising tide. We are all in it. At the beginning of the talk, I talked about corporate and sustainability and how it's in boardrooms. And I just like to kind of bring it down and bolt it to the ground again because it is happening around us. And we are all a part of it. We just need to find a way to plug into it. And is it a tipping point? Are we at a tipping point, as Gladwell said? I don't think we're at a tipping point yet. But I would agree, I would say that with this type of thinking, this holistic four-force thinking, and the SEER, and looking at things through the SEER lens, Mark and I are calling it the SEER lens. If you look at your strategic decisions through the SEER lens, you'll increase your probability of success in the long haul. Thank you.
So, in the past, I worked for Herbalife, and what we're doing is we've had a tarnished brand for the last 20 out of our 30 years in existence. And what we've started doing for the last 5 years under the leadership of Michael O. Johnson, our chairman and CEO, what we've been doing is going in and improving our product as well as the company as a whole. And he does it one way. I'm interested to know how you have done it in the 8 or so organizations that you've been the leader.
So specifically, you're talking about how the product was improved?
Product as well as the brand recognition. When somebody says, Leon, where do you work? And I say Herbalife, and they say, oh, you're still around, you're that pyramid scheme, right? And that has now subsided slightly because of the efforts of our chairman, where we've gone from seed to feed. We control all our product, and we also understand that what we do in, let's say, Thailand, has repercussions on Wall Street. So that's what I'm talking about. Kind of, how have you gone about improving the brand image of the companies you work for?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first of all, it's never about me. There's a lot of brilliant people that come up with these different ways to do it, and it's evolved over time. Right now, I guess first and foremost on my list would be social media. I mean, there's absolutely no way that you could afford from traditional marketing to be able to change consumer perception about the brand in the normal channels, unless you want to spend a lot of money, like Gatorade changing its image, or there's just no way. But from a social media point of view, if it's authentic and it's real, and you get the right people, blogging, you get the right people on Facebook, you get the right events going on, and you make it sexy and fun. It's got to be interesting, and it's got to be viral. People have to look at it and go, that grabs me, and they have to move it on to 10 of their best friends. That is the way to do it. Just in what's your company, I'd have to spend a lot more time with you to kind of find out what it is, but I'm sure there's a lot of hooks that you have that people just need to see. And you need to be able to tell people about what you're doing in an elevator speech kind of a way. You can't just you can't use traditional marketing and here's our mission and here's our 4-page document about how we're going to change things, and everything's like, no way, it doesn't work anymore. But I think it sounds like you have something to say. I would go that way unless you have a lot of money to spend. Yes, sir.
Most of your, well, I guess what I saw, it's all consumer brands.
Brands, consumer-facing, yes, that's my experience, yeah.
What differences do you see from the consumer brands of the Ben & Jerry's and Tom's shoes?
Yeah.
One I've just gotten, great company.
Yeah, it is.
But what difference from the consumer brands to say like a commercial where everything, when you're dealing with commercial companies, you direct with, I'm not in front of, I'm not a consumer brand, but I supply product to commercial companies. And everything comes down, it's very competitive, comes all the way down to price. Or at least you think it comes, you get beat up price. How do you incorporate social responsibility and everything to get a competitive advantage?
Yep, that's a really great question, and I don't have a great answer, because for one, I'm not an expert on that at all. But I can tell you that it's going to involve a core program that you can articulate to your vendors. And it has to provide value to them. If you think of it as a value chain, a traditional value chain that we think of in business, you have to be able to say, okay, here's our current value chain, and here's the proposition that we have right now. And you have to say, here's what we're doing right here, and here's how it's increasing your value chain. And so you can either charge a little bit more, so that but that's really important. Another thing that comes to mind is, I might be mispronouncing this, but Schumpeter, the economist from the 1930s that came up with the creative destruction term. I love that, where he talks about taking assets that are not producing what they had in the past and converting them into assets that are levered by what's going on in today's world or today's supply chain. I would take a strong look at that, and so those are the two ways I would tackle it. One from the value add point of view, and one from the cost side of view. Any other questions? I think I wore them out, Mark.
I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
So I liked how you talked about, you first have to understand your own values before you engage in business. And I like that the sentence that you use, everything that you touch becomes your community. And you talked about how you deal with different supply chain partners, sometimes abroad. My question for you is, we as individuals can have trouble understanding what our values are if we don't reflect deeply enough on it. How are we, when we engage in business and on the supply chain, able to bring others' values in line with ours? And specifically, I'm thinking of in the United States, if we do business with other third world countries that might not have as good intellectual property protection as we do. How would you help better align the values of individuals and with corporations?
Yeah, that's a great question, and as soon as I answer that really well, it will award me the Nobel Peace Prize. So I don't have a great answer for that, but I will say that I really believe that if you look at the values of these values, that these values these are ubiquitous values. That's why I call them macro values. We call them macro values. And if you're specifically talking about IP, I don't have a good answer for that. I was going to try to map that into the model, and it's really one of the first times I've been really stumped with it. Because if you don't have ethics, and in fact, your business model is going to be ruined if you do have ethics, you might be predisposed not to have values.
Or can I also add, your business models will be destroyed if your business partners also don't have ethics.
Yeah, but in your example, they're not partners, are they? They're just stealing the IP. So it's a great question. I don't have an answer.
Sorry.
That's a good one. I love it. Yes, sir.
I know a lot of companies started smaller, were privately owned. Nike's public and was reactive as opposed to proactive. At one point, don't know if you have any experience or know CEOs from public companies where they've sold to shareholders who actually are the answer to on going eco, going proactive, going public, as opposed to reactive to like a disaster, sweatshops and.
Well, Nike's a perfect example. I mean, when they saw what was going on, they're the ones that made the decision. Hey, we need to turn this around, or it's going to be bad for us. And they not only got on the problem, they got in front of the problem. They are by far the market leader in this category of public companies. There'll be things that will be coming out in the next 3 months from Nike and a consortium of businesses, with Nike leading it, that are just phenomenal for the CSR movement.
Were they reactive to an incident, or was it?
They were reactive to I don't know if you remember, I guess it was about 10 years ago, major protests, student protests, NGOs going after them about sweatshop labor, and they were doing a lot of things. They were just growing so fast. They were putting factories in, and they just got around on the other side of it, put everything out in the open for everybody to see on the web. They were one of the founders of the, oh, it's not coming to me, but one of the organizations that does the surprise visits on all the factories, documents who's there, interviews, and so they just completely turned it around.
See, to me, that's great damage control and then doing the right thing after the fact. My question was, do you know CEOs and companies that are public, answering the shareholders, that have done it before they've been held their feet to the fire?
Well, GE would be a perfect example. Levi's, they've turned it around. A big part was CSR being the YouTube videos of GE and of Levi's at the last BSR conference are fantastic. And they're really talking about CSR being embedded into the DNA of their companies now. So I would say those are the two examples.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you for your talk.